Welcome to episode 31 of the FoodGrads Podcast, the podcast where we explore careers in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Veronica Hislop, a molecular science graduate student and career partner with FoodGrads. This week on the podcast, I interviewed Kim Chackal, Director of Sales and Marketing at Equifruit. Equifruit is unofficially the most extra Fairtrade-certified banana brand out there. They are a fair trade fruit importer and marketer that makes social impact as appetizing as pop culture. Stay tuned for their worldwide fair trade banana domination with their mission to go global. In this episode, Kim gave me the lowdown on Equifruit and told me about the story of how they came to be. We dive into what exactly fair trade is and why conventional bananas really shouldn't be the price that they are. But, spoiler, purchasing fair trade bananas won't actually break your bank. We spent a lot of the episode talking about Equifruit's unique approach to marketing and how selling produce is different than processed goods. Kim also talked to me about her career and what she does at Equifruit, and how being interested in psychology helps her in her job. Finally, we rounded out the episode by Kim teaching me more about what SheEO is and how they are supporting women-led ventures. So, enough with that introduction, let's get on with the show. Thank you so much, Kim, for taking time to come out on the show. I had to get you on the show because of Equifruit's unique marketing. You have a banana and a shark. I don't even know what's going on, but it's really cool. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you. It's always exciting as a marketer to know that we're grabbing the attention of our target audience. So I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Because, I have to already point out bananas, they're one of those things that you take for granted when you go to the grocery store, and they cost, I can tell you, 56 cents a pound because that's what they always are. But for our audience, can you tell me more about what you do and where you work?
I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Equifruit. And Equifruit is a banana brand. We're based here up in Canada, and we import and market fair trade bananas. Currently, we have distribution in Canada, but we have our sights set on global fair trade banana domination. So really what we're trying to do is disrupt the entire banana industry. Why do we do what we do? Simply because farmers in the banana industry are not paid well. They don't generally work under good conditions. We're just trying to correct that. As you said, we all kind of take for granted this 56 or 57 or 59 or 69 or whatever it is, less than $1 per pound banana. People just assume that it's economies of scale, but really it's the farmer that's paying that price. And so we have a 100% commitment to fair trade sourcing. And when I say fair trade, I mean Fair Trade Canada, which is part of that Fair Trade International system. You can check out the website fairtrade.ca.
I'm actually curious about the company. How was it formed, I guess you could say?
Yeah, so the company was founded in 2006 in Quebec by a mother and daughter who saw a gap in the market for ethically sourced bananas. They knew about fair trade coffee and chocolate and tea. They also knew a lot about the banana industry, and they just couldn't find a fair trade banana. And so what do you do if you don't see the change in the world? You be that change. And they just founded this company. They started a relationship with a co-op of small producers in Peru. And then they spent an entire year securing customers in Quebec to buy the fruit, because once you book that container of fruit, which is almost 1,000 cases of bananas, you've got to make sure that it's sold by the time it gets here. And so it took a lot of convincing about the importance of paying a little bit more for bananas, because the fair trade price is really not that much more. But when you're talking to buyers who are just used to dirt cheap prices on bananas, a couple bucks more or $5 more per case does seem like a lot. So essentially, they got the company off the ground, and they spent the next several years slowly developing the market in Quebec. And by 2013, the mom was ready to retire. Their daughter was going back to school. And so the company switched hands, and Jenny Coleman, who is also here in Montreal, she's now the president and owner of Equifruit. And the company came with one other employee who handled logistics, placing the orders with our farmers and handling all the paperwork to import into Canada. And I came on the following year. We're continuing to grow. We've become the market leader in Canada on fair trade banana imports. And I think that our brand is catching attention in a way that perhaps other banana brands are not, or maybe other produce brands are not. We're really trying to be innovative in our space.
Well, I can definitely attest to the innovation because it's very hard for me to name off any other produce brands. Sure, I can name off all these like peanut butter brands, for example, but when it comes to bananas or berries, like they're kind of all the same to me. And I know that's not a good thing, but it's just how I've grown up in my grocery stores and such. So
Yeah.
but
Well, that's terribly exciting. If just the fact that you can name off a banana brand and Equifruit is the first one that comes to mind, that's really our goal. So I'm super excited to hear that. Thank you for saying that.
and you're starting to get some trials at Costco's in the GTA. People love them Costco.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've been a Costco shopper for 20 years now, ever since I've been working in the fair trade world. I always keep an eye on what Costco has on hand under fair trade. I mean, all of their Kirkland private label coffees are all Fairtrade certified. They've slowly been developing other categories, but they didn't have anything when it came to bananas. So yeah, we're super excited about that. We're in about 14 warehouses in the GTA. It's a trial for now. As long as we continue to bring in quality product under our brand and we get the consumers excited, there could be a big opportunity for us there. So yeah, really, really exciting win for us, and more exciting for our farmers. Our farmers in Ecuador are just so pumped to see their fruit in a major retailer. It's an international retailer. So it's really putting a big spotlight on the need for fair trade and bananas, and also the Equifruit brand.
Do you mind telling me a bit more about what exactly fair trade is for those who might not really know what that is?
Totally. Yeah, for sure. It's a great question. So when we're talking about fair trade in two words, we're basically talking about business within an ethical framework. So fair trade, it's not at all free trade. That's something entirely different, but because they sound similar, people often confuse them. So fair trade in two words, business within an ethical framework, making sure that there is value along the supply chain on both ends, making sure that whoever is harvesting this crop or whatever commodity you're trading is being treated well, paid well, etc. So in the case of Equifruit, we have a 100% brand promise, meaning that 100% of the fruit that we import is fair trade certified. And so our certification is with Fairtrade Canada, and that's fair trade in one word. So if you look at a bunch of Equifruit bananas, you'll see the little fair trade logo, or if you check out our website, equifruit.com, you'll see a little bit more about what fair trade means. So essentially, under the fair trade system, and I'm speaking about fair trade in one word now, we're making sure that the prices that Equifruit pays to the farmers for the bananas, that minimum price that we have to respect, it reflects the cost of sustainable production. Now, that might sound like a no-brainer, right? If you're buying something from somebody, it at least covers the cost of sustainable production. But in the case of bananas, it would astonish you to know that on a regular basis, on a weekly basis, as the market price fluctuates, farmers are often subject to just take whatever the market will give them. And it's often well below the cost of sustainable production. So when I said earlier that somebody is paying that cost or eating that cost, it really is farmers. So we're respecting these minimum prices, which are established between farmers and Fairtrade International. And these minimum prices have to be respected on a year-long contract, which, as you can imagine, also offers a lot of stability to the farmer to know that they're going to have an importer like Equifruit that's going to commit to a year-long program through thick and thin. No matter what happens that year, we're going to agree on minimum quantities that we're going to be importing. And then what's really cool, and I think something that really resonates with our customers, is also this fair trade social premium. So in the case of bananas, for every case that we import, and I said it earlier, in a full load of bananas, we have almost 1,000 cases. So for every case that we import, we also have to pay $1 to the farms in fair trade social premium. And this $1 US has to be reinvested in projects that have social, environmental, and economic impact. And it's the farmers themselves that decide democratically how to invest this money, because there are many models where you have organizations in the north that are going to decide how the organizations in the South should be spending money. They just keep building schools and sending soccer balls, which at a certain point, the farmers are like, schools and soccer balls are great. And I'll be honest, that's part of what the social premium funds is, sports and also health and wellness. But you would be amazed to see what farmers they decide they need. I heard of a story once, a fair trade coffee farmer, where they took some of that social premium money and they spent it on a donkey, because this donkey was able to bring the farmers up these steep cliffs to reach these beautiful fair trade coffee beans that they otherwise would have a lot of difficulty reaching. And who would have ever thought in the North, yeah, definitely spend some of that money on a donkey. But it kind of points to this example. Sometimes our farmers spend the money on some motorcycles. I remember going to visit in Peru and Ecuador and seeing a fleet of motorcycles, because it allows them to quickly get back and forth from the port when they're doing paperwork or whatever. So they decide how to use that money. On the grower side, right? So I talked about the responsibilities of Equifruit, respecting these minimum prices and premiums. But on the side of the growers, there are a number of standards that have to be respected, because our growers are also certified by Fairtrade. They have to respect things like no forced child labor, making sure that there's equality between men and women. Again, sounds like a no-brainer, but it definitely is not a no-brainer. In agriculture, there is a lot of sexual harassment, sexual exploitation. So it's really protecting the farmers, their communities, and keeping their interests at heart.
There's so many things that you said there that it's just, like you said, it's no brainers, but it's amazing that these are still issues that have to be actively worked at, and they're not solved just yet, which
totally,
it's mind blowing.
I think of, for example, a great company based out of Ottawa, Camino. So you might be familiar with their chocolate or their coffee. They also produce sugar. And I remember their farmers had like a major weather disaster and wiped out a bunch of their crops. And through their partnership, their fair trade partnership through Camino, they were able to weather that storm and get through it and lend them the money they needed, because it's a long-term partnership. And so I've heard in the past about big corporations, like they're ready to make a commitment on fair trade, but then there's like this major weather disaster and they pull out because, it's just too expensive for them, and they're protecting their shareholders, which is just not fair, And so Equifruit, like the team, we happen to all be women at this point, although we're going to continue hiring and eventually there'll be men on our team. But at the moment, we're a bunch of women that are just like, we're just bootstrapping it and getting it done. Like, we see this big issue in the banana industry. Nobody else is talking about it. And so we're just making a big fuss. And it's really nice to see, especially younger people. I love to hear you say that just seems like common sense. And I can't believe that this is something that we're dealing with in 2021. Right? It should be an issue of the past. Like, the major banana companies started their business in the late 1800s, and they spent a number of decades getting that fruit to market in a very efficient way, and then spent a number of years marketing bananas to us, because there's a ton of marketing that goes into teaching consumers what a fruit or vegetable is, what is it called, how do you use it, what to do with it. A great example is like avocados. 15 years ago, nobody ate avocados. And then they slowly made their way into the sushi market. And then they slowly became like this health craze. But there was so many millions of dollars that were spent marketing that product to us, how to cut it open, how to get the seed out, how to preserve it, how to make sure it doesn't go brown. Like, so this all happened with bananas. You can like Google old bananas ads from the 50s and 60s, and there were songs and jingles that taught, like, don't put the bananas in the fridge or they'll turn brown. Like, these happy little songs. And there's a happy housewife at the end of the day presenting a banana parfait to her husband or partner that's come back from work.
Oh gosh.
It's really kind of funny to think how it all evolved. And the strategy from day one with the large banana companies was, we're going to drive awareness and sales on this category by keeping prices cheaper than our local apples and oranges. That was really the goal. And when you think about it, totally mission accomplished. I just went apple picking with my family a couple of weeks ago. And when I did the math, I paid more for an apple in Quebec here that I picked myself than for a banana that came from 5,000 kilometers away on a boat that then needed to be professionally ripened and distributed in a series of trucks.
Yeah.
Total madness. We should be paying way more for our bananas.
Oh, I know, especially when apples are big here in Ontario, and I've seen the price of picking, which I'm fine with, but it's it's confusing.
It is, right? It is.
We've talked about the landscape with bananas, but I wanted to know more about you and your role. Could you tell me a little bit more? Just give me a lowdown.
So my role officially is Director of Sales and Marketing. So on the sales side, my job is to go out and develop new customers for an Equifruit banana program. So I'm dealing with both distributors who we sell our bananas to, and they resell to a series of smaller customers because they have the ripening facilities to ripen and handle the fruit. And then I also go out and deal directly with retailers. So sometimes I'll start a relationship with a retailer, have a series of meetings to tell them all about Equifruit, the value that we can add, the way that we can drive sales and tonnage and innovation in their banana category. So I'm working in partnership with those two categories. And then also on the marketing side, my job is to make Equifruit's brand promise of 100% fair trade front and center so that we capture the attention of people and they see us as an ethical solution in the banana category. And let's be honest, most people are not familiar with what happens in the banana industry. They might have heard of the term Banana Republic, but they really just think of a nice clothing store. They don't know about the exploitation that was human and environmental exploitation and the development of banana industry. So on your free time, definitely Google what is a Banana Republic, and it's pretty horrifying to learn about that history. So in marketing, I'm really driving awareness about our brand. I oversee our social media strategy. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're about to launch on TikTok in the coming months. So I'm just trying, my job is to get Equifruit all over the place and also work on the packaging and website and all of that other fun stuff.
I need to know, I mean, like I said, Equifruit totally stands out with its marketing in terms of bright colors. It's very vibrant, and honestly, it's so eye-catching. But I wanted to know, where did that unique approach even come from? You know, how did we go away from those jingles to what you're doing?
The company's brand has really changed and evolved over time. We were initially even called another name. When the company was founded, it was called Equicosta. And then it changed to Equifruit. And then we spent 13 years as Equifruit and continue to be Equifruit. But last year at the beginning of COVID, when it was clear that everything was canceled and we didn't know when the world was going to feel normal again, we did a full rebranding. So we changed up our website, our whole brand strategy. We changed all of our packaging, our cases, our bands, our stickers. And we decided to move away from our old approach, which was kind of familiar. Fair trade brands are often connecting the consumer to the farmer, telling the farmer's story, sharing pictures, sharing videos from the farms. That was really our old approach. We were capturing the attention of like the real diehard niche consumers, but that most people are not that diehard niche consumer. There's nothing wrong with that. And so we wanted to make our brand more accessible and more available to the larger masses. And so we decided to go with this approach where, like, what would the everyday person find interesting? And the first touch point for our consumer is actually getting a bunch of our bananas at the grocery store, right? So on our organic bananas, you have a band around the bunch. We have to have a band so that they get rung up as organic at the cash. And so we're like, what can we put on this band that would stop people in their tracks? And so we decided to go with this strategy where you would have these impossible messages on the bananas. So you can pick up a bunch of organic Equifruit bananas, and it can say something like, the only banana on 5G, or the only banana to binge watch, or the only banana to reverse aging. And the idea there is for you to have a laugh and scratch your head a little bit and say, like, what on earth, why does this banana say the only banana to reverse aging? And then you'll see our little Equifruit jagged banana, kind of this like edgy banana that's our little brand icon. and there will be a little thought bubble on it that will say something like, the only banana to reverse aging, why do we invest in these beauty creams and blah, blah, blah. The only thing that really makes your skin glow is social justice. So, cut through it. This is the only banana you should buy. And so that tagline, the only banana you should buy, is also plastered across our very colorful cases. And the side of our case says the most extra fair trade banana brand out there. We just know that people find they just find it more fun to interact with a brand that will make them laugh and smile. And then at the same time, of course, what we're trying to teach you about is fair trade and the importance of paying banana farmers fairly and paying a little bit more at the cash so that you have that equity along the supply chain. And, for those of you who are listening and wondering well, can I afford fair trade bananas? It sounds nice, but maybe it's too expensive. It doesn't fit in my budget. The great news is that it's totally affordable. We've worked it out so that it actually works out to about $10 more per year in your budget, in your food budget, if you were to switch from regular bananas to Equifruit fair trade bananas. So I think that 83 cents per month is pretty doable, no matter whether you're just starting off in your career or if you're still living at home or you're a student and you have a tight budget. What do you think, Veronica? Do you think 83 cents a month is doable?
I definitely think it's doable for sure. And now I'm just as I listen to you, I'm like, oh, I need you in my local, because I don't shop at Costco. So unfortunately that won't be my option. I do know that you sell at Longo's, which isn't usually the ones that I partake in, but I'm like, oh, I got to get you guys in all the superstores and Freshcos and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, we're working on it. You can jump on the Equifruit website, equifruit.com, and go to our Find Our Products page, and we list all of the retailers in Quebec and Ontario. So in Quebec, you could find us through Lufa Farms. You can also go to any of the Sobeys stores in Quebec. So any IGA or Rachel Berry, Banichois Tradition. And then when you're on the Ontario side, our organic bananas are available at all of the Farm Boy locations, Goodness Me, Nature's Emporium, Fiesta Farms. And then Longo's is a very special retailer. They actually have a 100% commitment to Equifruit bananas. So they're the only retailer that has the conventional fair trade bananas. And so when I say conventional, the regular bananas that are fair trade, and the organic. And you can also get them delivered to you through Grocery Gateway. And then we've touched on Costco, which carries our organic product as well.
Wow. The revolution is happening slowly, but it's definitely making its way, which is awesome.
It is. Actually, I can announce this now because I'm sure that by the time this airs that this will be ready, but we're about to also launch with Good Food. So some of you might be familiar with Good Food meal kits. They're really developing their home delivery grocery model. And so in Toronto and in Montreal, you'll be able to order Equifruit organic bananas and have them delivered to you along with the Good Food groceries. So you can check out the Good Food website. That'll be launching towards the end of October, early November.
Oh, that is very exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Wow, I find conventional bananas odd as well. And the fact that you mentioned about the stickers that kind of make you smile, but I find it odd that the stickers for other bananas are still showing movie characters from like the Ants movie. I still see stickers, and it's very confusing. I would say that.
It's funny, actually. I got a call one day out of the blue. I thought it was a prank call. This guy called Mike. I pick up my phone and he says, "Hi, I'm Mike and I'm with Universal Studios. And I was given your name for Equifruit, where, we do these cross promotions between these big picture Disney movies and banana brands. And so somebody put our name forward as a banana brand that maybe Universal Studios could promote with." So basically it's just a way to promote these movies that are coming up. And the cost to the banana brand is pretty much just putting the sticker on the packaging. And then there's this opportunity to cross promote. We didn't have wide enough distribution at the time, and we don't yet. I don't know if it's the best alignment for us. I mean, we're really focused on changing the banana industry and making sure that farmers are paid well and shedding light on this cheap banana issue that we have globally. Really, it's not just unique to Canada or to the United States. It's a global issue. And bananas just continue to be used as a loss leader because retailers think that they can lure us in with cheap bananas, and then you might have a sense that the whole store will have an inexpensive offering. and they'll be able to make up those sales on other categories. So you buy your cheap 56-cent bananas, but then you buy bottled smoothie and like a pre-chopped mango and like some other HMR categories. So it's nonsensical, in my opinion. We have the means to pay for the bananas. And I think in 2021, that retailers who still have that frame of mind should rethink that strategy, because Equifruit has proven over and over again that retail shoppers are not focused on banana prices. Like, we don't necessarily memorize the price of bananas. We just know that they're affordable. And so if you like bananas, you just buy them on autopilot every week.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things I was curious about is, how is selling like produce or buying it different than, the regular CPG brands? So going back to the peanut butter off the shelf, like, I don't know where I want to go with it. I just want to know the differences between it. Like, how do you approach a retailer when it's, again, seemingly to them, it might just seem like a banana?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I haven't worked in the CPG space. It sounds like it comes with its own set of challenges. For example, in CPG, you have to pay to have your product on the shelf. Like, you're renting space on the shelf. And if your product doesn't perform, then you're out of there. So it's a very costly investment, and you have to be very wise about which SKUs you list with each retailer. You really want to have your product in the best location, but if you only really sell 2 of your 5 SKUs, then it doesn't necessarily make sense to list all 5 SKUs. So yeah, tons of challenges there, I'm sure, although I haven't worked in that space. On the produce side, I would say the big difference with produce, anybody that works in produce, like, we're dealing with a highly perishable product, right? So bananas come into Quebec or Ontario, we rush them directly to the distributor or to the retailer who has their own ripening facilities. The bananas are then ripened over the next 3 to 5 days and then shipped out to the stores. And by the time they hit the shelf there, they have like 5 to 7 days to sell them tops. And the more yellow they get, the closer they are to having to discount them. So if a retailer is going to commit to a brand on produce, or not just necessarily a brand, but any vendor on produce, they have to be sure that there's good quality there so that the product turns over quickly and they minimize what they call shrink, which is basically loss.
Okay.
So I would think that those are the number one challenges. I mean, on the banana side, what's very unique about my challenge in sales on bananas is that it's not like apples or tomatoes where you might have 25 different varieties of apples in a store and I'm pitching another banana. We're really pitching that they remove the banana offering that they currently have and replace it with Equifruit Fairtrade at a higher price point. We can't tell them what price point to list at, but obviously our bananas are more expensive than the regular bananas. And so they have to make up that margin by passing along that price increase to the consumer. So think about it this way, if a retailer has been around for 50, 60 years, they've probably always just had this very low price on bananas. So for me to come in and say, hey, these bananas have been ethically sourced, we work within fair trade, and so therefore you're going to want to increase your retail price, and this is the price of the bananas, and everything is more expensive. They're just doing the math in their minds thinking, like, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to lose a bunch of money. They're worried they're going to lose their customers. And what's really cool over and over is that for the partnerships that we have, they end up having a positive experience where they don't lose any sales. People buy bananas on autopilot. So as long as the quality is there, the product is ripened properly and it looks good, they're going to keep selling those bananas. And now that they're at a higher price point, their margins could potentially be higher. So they could actually be having higher sales. And then the farmer at the beginning of the supply chain is paid well. And then Equifruit, as the broker, can come in and actually produce these sustainability reports where, let's say Longo's, for example, right, who has this 100% commitment to us, we're projecting that they're going to be giving back anywhere between $200,000 and $250,000 to those farmers in Ecuador by the end of the year, based on that $1 per case. And then because everything is very transparent and it's all audited by FlowCert, we can then come back to Longo's and say, look, these are the types of projects that were supported through your partnership. And we'll even be sending down photographers and videographers to capture some footage of the types of projects that were supported.
Oh,
so I think that's
amazing.
a pretty unique, it's a pretty fun and unique offering. We're very, very involved with all of our partnerships. We have to think of this as a long-term partnership too. So my job in sales is to retain our customers, keep them happy, keep them informed, have very good communication 24/7.
Is this job, in terms of approaching these retailers and all that, is that something that's difficult for you? Has it been a skill that you've had to work on over time?
I've been working in sales since I was 17 years old. I started in retail, then I moved into a marketing agency, and I was doing door-to-door sales, like business-to-business sales, which for any of you that have ever worked door-to-door sales, it's kind of the hard knocks of sales experience, because you deal with rejection 90% of the day, probably, in the industry that I was in. And it just kind of gives you a tough skin. You just have to focus entirely on that 10%. And if you give up, then you lose. If you keep going, then you win. If you are able to motivate yourself and stay strong, then you'll achieve your goals. But nothing is handed to you in the world of sales. And I think that salespeople who are really talented, they kind of all in common you have to have a little bit of an adrenaline junkie / crazy streak, because I mean, who wants to deal with rejection most of the day? I have had buyers laugh at me. I have had buyers tell me that, good luck with this, but like, you're nuts. Like they're not necessarily always supportive. Some are wonderful and they wish us well, but they just say like, this doesn't work for us right now. Your confidence has to shine through. Like, as human beings, we can sense when somebody really doesn't feel confident, and it comes through in our nonverbal communication. So I think that to be good at what you do is it takes practice. It takes years and years of experience of studying your own behavior, the way that you speak, the way that you stand, where are your hands, how are your shoulders positioned. And it's insane the amount of nonverbal communication that are involved in sales. I can remember when I first joined Equifruit, my boss would come to a lot of the sales meetings with me because she knew much more about the banana industry than I did. Even though I was reading books about bananas and stuff every week, she was kind of there as a support, so that if I was to get a question that I wasn't prepared to answer, she was there as a support. And so we would leave these meetings, right? And she was like, oh, that was awesome. They asked us for pricing for, 1 case of bananas or for 100 cases. That's awesome. I think we're going to make the sale. And I'm like, okay, but did you see the way that his arms were crossed, or the way that he moved his body back when you said this? Like, I don't think that we're going to make this sale. You're constantly studying human behavior. Even until this day, 20 years into my sales journey, I'm still incredibly self-critical. And when I do a podcast or anything that's recorded, I will listen to it over and over and ask myself, if I were to answer that question again, how could I improve? Was there an opportunity to throw back a question to the person that was interviewing me that would have made it more dynamic or more interesting? Anybody that's listening that's curious about getting into sales, I would say get yourself a door-to-door job. It could be tough, but it could be also the best thing that ever happened to you. For anybody that was watching the news this week, the founder of Spanx, she just sold her company for $1.2 billion. And she started in door-to-door fax sales. And I've read so many articles where she always came back to that experience of believing in her product and just going door to door and moving product, because it really gave her that thick skin that she needed to last in the industry.
That makes perfect sense. I'm not going out and getting a sales job anytime soon, but even just doing this podcast to me has been just like stretching me just to reach out to people I've never spoken to. Like that's scary, to be the thought of being rejected. And I know most of the time it's just because people don't have time. Now I know your dynamic is very different about getting your product in the store, but those types of things they're nerve-wracking. So it's interesting
Yeah.
that you point out the nonverbal cues, because I think that's something we forget about, because I
Mhm.
think you can be aware of it without even knowing you're aware, because sometimes you just go, I got a bad vibe from that person, but everything on the
Totally.
surface seemed fine. So I guess it's
Yeah.
becoming more in tune with, you've had that experience to be more in tune to kind of understand what your gut is telling you. So
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've always been interested in the way that humans think and behave. I actually did my degree in university in psychology. I had no intention to pursue psychology after school, but I've always just been the type of person that if I'm interested and curious about something, I'll go and learn about it. So like
mhm.
I studied psychology, I did my undergrad at Concordia in Montreal, and then I went back to marketing and sales, and then I took a year off and I went to culinary school because I love food and I love cooking, and I wasn't excellent at it. And I thought, you know what, it's a great life skill. Just like, let's see where this goes. And I think sometimes, especially for people who are in college or university, you feel this enormous pressure to make like these huge life decisions in your early 20s. And
Mhm.
my suggestion is like, go with the flow, learn from every experience, and don't feel like you have to come equipped with all of the answers. I think you have to approach each opportunity with a posture of humility um, and ask for help and ask for guidance. I think it's human to want to help other people. So if you admire somebody because they're strong, they have certain skill set that you admire, that's something that you'd like to develop, then ask them for out for lunch or ask them for a coffee, and you'd be amazed how much you can learn just from mentorship.
And sometimes you don't even need to look far. Like you can even ask your professors if you're still in school, or just people around you, because I've learned that my classmates, or they know so much as well. And I've always
Mhm.
been hesitant, it's something that I've really been pushing myself in the past few months, and really actively taking that shot is just, you know what, if it looks like I don't know something, well, it's the truth is I don't know something, and I'm just at the end
Mhm.
of the day impeding me. And if they ask me for help, I'm going to do it for them. So
Mhm.
why, sometimes people get busy and that's okay, but it also just practices that overcoming that barrier of being rejected, which is 90% in your head, I find, when it comes to those
Right.
situations. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I totally applaud you for starting your own podcast and for making it happen. I think it's awesome. And I think that, yeah, I have no idea what percentage of people you approach who are too busy, but I mean, the reality is people that are busy and they don't necessarily not want to talk to you or spend time with you, but you just keep going and you'll find your yeses. And I think it's a great networking opportunity as well. You're going to meet all kinds of people in all different industries, and you just never know where that will lead.
thank you. Yeah. I've noticed that most of the time, no, the people who say no actually don't say no. They just don't email back. So
Oh,
it's
right, right.
technically not a no. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a
There you
ghosting.
go. There you go. Optimistic, optimistic. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we are already coming close to the end of the hour, but I did want to take a moment to ask you more. This might be a very long question, but regardless, about SheEO. Am I
Oh,
pronouncing
SheEO.
SheEO? There we go.
Yeah,
I found it a little interesting, and I was hoping you could maybe just briefly touch upon it and what it means to be an activator.
sure. Yeah, so if you jump onto my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I'm a SheEO activator through Equifruit. So we kind of represent Equifruit as the activator. SheEO is an organization based in Toronto, and it offers interest-free loans to women-led ventures. So it's a really, really cool concept. To be an activator, it means that you're committed to paying a certain amount every year. I think it's about $1,000, $1,200 a year, a good chunk of which goes to funding these women-led ventures, which tend to have almost a 100% loan repayment rate. So it's funding different ventures across the globe, and it also gives you access to this community of women globally that are in all kinds of different careers and pathways. So it's just a terrific opportunity for networking, getting to know other strong women, and then also learning about all these amazing projects that are being funded by women and that are being led by women. So that's something that we got involved in at Equifruit earlier this year, and I would highly recommend it. You just go to, so it's just like it sounds, SheEO, SheEO, I think .com or .org. Definitely check that out.
Okay, wow. I'm happy that I was able to share that. Again, my thought process goes that it just sounds like there's so many of these, I would say you're on the smaller side, if you don't mind me saying, in terms of companies, that it sounds like for young people and students that there's a lot of opportunities. And I feel like if they just kind of jump into the networking and just go to these events, that you can get in contact with people like you, and just maybe there's a role for someone that they might not typically know about, like, you know, it's not being advertised like crazy, but just to get a better idea of the landscape, because they want people who are, you know, they want people who are excited about sharing these values like what Equifruit does. And we need more people in the next generation to like push forward the things that we're talking about that should be no brainers, but are still issues. So
yeah, and you know what, I think where the alignment is between SheEO and Equifruit is going back to what I said at the beginning of the hour, where, you know, there was this gap in the market for ethical bananas. And so the founders of the company, like, they became the change they wanted to see in the world. They just went out and did it. And when we're talking about venture capitalists and women founded projects, less than 2% of the venture capitalist funding goes towards women. So there's a major gap in the market. And so Vicki Saunders, who founded SheEO, she just said, well, forget it. We're just going to make it happen. We're going to get women across the globe all, you know, worked up about funding women-led ventures. And as a group, we're going to fund them ourselves. And so there are like millions of dollars because of this network of women globally. And it continues to grow, this fund, from year to year. And every month or every week, even, you can be as involved as you want to. You have this opportunity to stay, you know, connected to this group of women and find out about these incredible projects, but companies and organizations that are led by women. So it's just kind of all goes back to this theme of, even for younger people, you see a gap in the market, you see something that's not right with the world, like, go out and fix it. You know, one of the things that I learned in my psych degree, which really stuck with me, was this concept of the diffusion of responsibility. So, for example, you're in a crowd of 100 people, right? You hear a gunshot go off and everybody's freaking out. The more people there are in that space, the less likely people are to react and go and call 911, because we're all just standing around waiting for somebody else to call 911. So, like, that's just stuck with me. You know, there's this issue in the world with these cheap bananas, and we can either wait for the large banana companies to become all Fairtrade certified, right? Which might take another 100 years. Or the Equifruits of the world are like, well, fine, if nobody else is going to do it, then we're going to do it. And we're going to figure out how to make it happen. And we're going to become more efficient from year to year. We're going to hire the right people, and we're going to hire for our weaknesses. And eventually we'll end up getting the attention of people like yourselves, who are saying, hey, I understand what you're doing. Your marketing is clear. I want to support a company that has these values and that has had this fair trade commitment since day one. You know, and you just go out and you just be that change that you want to see.
I love that. And I'm going to leave it there, because I could not add on to anything more, because you said it. Welcome to episode 31 of the FoodGrads Podcast, the podcast where we explore careers in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Veronica Hislop, a molecular science graduate student and career partner with FoodGrads. This week on the podcast, I interviewed Kim Chackal. This week on the podcast, I interviewed Kim Chackal, Director of Sales and Marketing at Equifruit. Equifruit is unofficially the most extra Fairtrade-certified banana brand out there. They are a fair trade fruit importer and marketer that makes social impact as appetizing as pop culture. Stay tuned for their worldwide fair trade banana domination with their mission to go global. In this episode, Kim gave me the lowdown on Equifruit and told me about the story of how they came to be. We dive into what exactly fair trade is and why conventional bananas really shouldn't be the price that they are. But, spoiler, purchasing fair trade bananas won't actually break your bank. We spent a lot of the episode talking about Equifruit's unique approach to marketing and how selling produce is different than processed goods. Kim also talked to me about her career and what she does at Equifruit, and how being interested in psychology helps her in her job. Finally, we rounded out the episode by Kim teaching me more about what SheEO is and how they are supporting women-led ventures. So enough with that introduction, let's get on with the show. That was episode 31 of the FoodGrads Podcast. All the notes to this podcast can be found on the FoodGrads website by clicking the podcast tab on the homepage. There, you can find any notes, past or future episodes. If you like this podcast but wanted to get your questions asked live, then make sure you check out our partnership with Careers Now and their interactive mentorship sessions, which guest speakers who currently work in the industry will describe their career journey, motivations, and aspirations in the food and beverage industry. From when this episode is being released till February 15th, 2022, Careers Now will have guests from when this episode is being released till February 15th, 2022, Careers Now will have guests from all across the industry, with the potential of more to come. So if you want to check that out, then check out the link in the show notes for this episode. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Perfectly. So I'm going to leave it there. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for coming on the show. Before I let you go, I need to know, where can people find you and Equifruit?
Yeah, so we have the craziest website you've ever seen. So go on to,
I've seen it. It's true. It's true.
It's true, right? Well, so, I mean, I know people don't go onto websites that much these days, but, you know, there are sharks, there are flying bananas. It kind of feels like a video game, and you're going to learn a little bit about our brand and why we do what we do in a really fun way. So go on to equifruit.com. That's EQUI fruit.com. Definitely check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We're all at Equifruit. I think that our Instagram is super fresh, really bold, really funny. We basically jump on to whatever's happening in pop culture and find a way to insert ourselves into that discussion. So definitely check out our Instagram at Equifruit, and our hashtags are the only banana, hashtag farmers gotta get paid, and hashtag banana badasses. Because let's be honest, we're banana badasses.
Oh my God. Perfect. Well, everyone, you have to go check that out. I highly recommend. Everything is very true. I love it. So I'm going to leave it there. So thanks again, Kim, for coming on the show. I'm hoping that everyone got as much out of this as I did. I've learned a lot. And again, I'm just surprised about things that are going on in the world, and be the change that you want it. Be the change you want. Oh gosh, you've said it better than me.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
There we go. That was episode 31 of the FoodGrads Podcast. All the notes to this podcast can be found on the FoodGrads website by clicking the podcast tab on the homepage. There you can find any notes to past or future episodes. If you like this podcast but wanted to get your questions asked live, then make sure you check out our partnership with Careers Now and their interactive mentorship sessions, where guest speakers who currently work in the industry will describe their career journey, motivations, and aspirations for the food and beverage industry. From when this episode is being released till February 15th, 2022, Careers Now will have guests from all across the industry, with the potential for more to come. So if you want to check that out, then check out the link in the show notes for this episode. Anyways, that's it for this week's podcast. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and I will see you next time.